So to Pokemon knowledge, we're granted a lot of freedoms in this hobby. And the main freedom we have in this hobby is you can pretty much do whatever you want, whatever works for you. And if you guys do not know, this is July 4th in America. This is the day America signed the Declaration of Independence for all those tyrants like Professor Oak over in England who were trying to, just bring tyranny to the states. Taxation without representation. This was the day that America said no more. And that was when we got our freedom from Great Britain. So, usually I do a shout out to Professor Oak, but on today's video, fuck you, Professor Oak. No, I'm only messing with you, buddy. But we're given a lot of freedoms in this hobby, the same way as we're given a lot of freedoms in life. And I think the same way in this hobby is the same way in life, is we take a lot of our freedoms for granted. And I think one of the things that a lot of people take for granted sometimes, and maybe granted's probably not the best choice of words for this, but I am shocked at how many people truly overestimate like what they know about this hobby, especially like super early on in this hobby. That is one of the very common things that happens. It's a reoccurrence that happens almost nonstop. Is people that are brand new to Pokemon or have just rediscovered Pokemon, they overestimate their abilities to such an insanely high level. And one of the things that I find happens as time goes on is the longer people are in this hobby, they truly understand how little bit they truly know. Every day in this hobby, I learned something new. And it's amazing, like, the drop-off I see. Like, people, they get into this hobby, and they just overestimate their abilities, like I said, to a crazy degree. And then it's just this huge ramp-up of what they think they know. But again, the longer they're in this hobby, the more they understand. So, it goes to the title of this video, You Think You Know Pokemon Invest. And I'm always amazed at hearing the way people talk about Pokemon investing, the way people talk about the Pokemon hobby, the way that people talk about Pokemon collecting, and listening to the way people speak, it's almost becoming easier to pinpoint when did you get back into the hobby. And the problem is a lot of people have biases in this hobby. Make no mistake about it. I understand that I have biases, but what I also find is that people don't start to recognize their own biases. And one of the very like simple, well, I shouldn't say it's a simple thing to do, but one of the most important things you can do for yourself in this hobby is pinpoint where your biases are in this hobby. Because if you pinpoint your biases in this hobby, you could hopefully like change and adapt and, if it makes sense, move away from those biases. This is one of those weird things. Biases are not always a negative thing. Biases can be both a negative and a positive thing at the same time. I know a lot of people hear that and it's like, can't have biases be a positive and a negative. Biases always should like tend towards the way of being more negative, but I don't think that's the case. And sometimes, where biases could really come in handy and they could be super beneficial for people is if you only understand or only know a certain area of this hobby, I think it's good to let your biases show more in that area of the hobby and really stay more on like a straight and narrow path and, stay on that trajectory. And that trajectory is just doing what you know best in this hobby. And then as time goes on, as you, continue to grow in this hobby, continue to gain knowledge in this hobby, continue to gain experience and expertise, or whatever you want to call it. As you gain those things, then you can start to branch off more and more. And then, because then you find yourself having less and less biases as time goes on in this hobby. One of the more fascinating things I've seen happen, and, I've seen people like say these exact words where some of the most successful people in this hobby, and when I say successful, I'm usually talking people that are doing 7 figures worth of business in the Pokemon hobby. So that means if you're from, your business is $1 to 999,000, while you might be successful from, the metrics that a lot of people would put at what makes a successful, person in this hobby for what doesn't. But for what I'm describing right now in this situation, is what I'm talking about is successful people, is people doing 7 figures worth of, Pokemon. There was so many times recently, and it's really exacerbated in the last, since 2020, the amount of people that really shit on those people's businesses and shit on the way those type of people run their businesses and the type of plays those people are doing, and the things they were moving, the things that they were acquiring, the things that they were buying, selling, sitting on. I always found that fascinating, that the people that were literally, in my opinion, the most successful people, those people doing 7 figures worth of Pokemon a year, there were people coming into this hobby who were only moving low 5 figures. Low 5 figures is 50,000, 60,000, and they were shitting on these, same people moving 7 figures. But it's funny because the same way as I mentioned at the very beginning, everybody comes in and they know what they're talking about and they're an expert, but as time goes on, I think they slowly realize that maybe they don't know as much as they originally thought they did. But if this weird thing happens, and then all those people that they were shitting on for a good period of time, they start to realize, oh, that person who I was originally shitting on are actually the people doing the actual big things in this hobby. All that behind the scenes shit. Those are the ones doing it. Those are the people actually moving these markets. These are the people that are actually dictating the prices from, the lowest end of this hobby to the highest end. And it's those people that are really dictating a lot of the day to day. And as time goes on, those people that, shit on those people, they no longer shit on them anymore. And I always found that fascinating. But this weird thing happens too, is the same way as everybody comes in and they're in the hobby and they're in it for a week. They know everything there is to know about Pokemon. They know everything there is to know about Pokemon investing. They know everything there is to know about vintage and modern and sealed product and graded cards. And they've never even graded a card, but they're an expert in it. They know everything that there is to know about those things. And, it's funny, so they all come in, they all think they know stuff, and then it just drops off with what they actually know. But this is the weird part now. Everything has some sort of silver lining to it. Everything has, where there is a negative, there's also a positive. While when they get in, they think they know everything, then they realize they don't actually know anything. But this funny thing happens. Now, as time progresses, as their time in the hobby progresses, a great, beautiful, fantastic thing happens. The longer they're here, all the knowledge they think that they had at the beginning, they start to acquire that knowledge. And as time goes on, and I told you, there's only one person in the history of this hobby who has been, will be, and continues to be undefeated, and that's Father Time. As Father Time keeps ticking, those people do start to acquire all that information. They do start to acquire all that knowledge. And that is one of the things that makes me most exciting about the hobby. Things that make me most, when I look at I know it's excited, but what makes me most hopeful? And I think hope is a word that we don't use enough. What are you truly hopeful in this hobby? Because anything you're hoping for is just that. It's what are your wishes? What are your deepest desires for this hobby? Because one of the beautiful things that have happened too recently is a lot of the things that we have hoped for in this hobby have came true. And hope is a great word, because the things that I am still hopeful for today, I'm seeing finish lines for a lot of those things. One of the things I was always hopeful for in this hobby was I always wanted Pokemon to just, and I know this is going to sound really bad to say, and maybe a lot of people are going to take this in the wrong way, but one of the things I was always hopeful in this hobby was I always wanted Pokemon to be compared as an equal to sports cards, whether it's baseball or football or basketball, because it always felt like Pokemon was always in a way shunned. And this is things I've talked to Nat Turner about, the president CEO of PSA, things I've talked to other people in this hobby, where it always felt like Pokemon was just, in a way, this redheaded stepchild, which was Pokemon. And, or not which was Pokemon, but which was the trading card community as a whole, where it was like, if you're not in baseball, if you're not in sports, you're just in Pokemon, that's just a kid's game. And it never got what I, at the time, was just very hopeful for, where it would start to become on a more level playing field, and people would start to take notice of it, and people would start to respect it for what it truly was, and not what people's biases thought Pokemon was. Because, like, for a lot of the sports card people, their biases always thought of Pokemon as second tier, always thought about it as that child's playing game, like I just mentioned. But as time went on, it did get that. It got the respect it always deserved, until eventually we saw huge things happen in this hobby, where, especially when it comes to PSA, Pokemon is no longer the stepchild. Pokemon is the number one thing that PSA grades, month over month over month, and it doesn't show any signs of slowing down. Pokemon stuff is graded than, most sports combined, like baseball, basketball, football, soccer, hockey. When you combine a lot of those, especially when you remove baseball, when you combine them, Pokemon is more things graded in a single month than most of those combined. It's not just in the shadows anymore. And then we started to see like more recognition with PSA magazines, a fantastic example. And one of the things that Nat Turner, when he was on this channel, is one of the things he talked about when he first, was approached with, should we do a TCG PSA magazine and then a sports PSA magazine and sort of keep them separate. And when Nat first took the reins of PSA, he didn't think that it was necessary for those to be divided, for those to be separate. But we did see that happen, and we're seeing how much the hobby is really accepting of that. Wild things happen, especially when you look at some of the PSA magazines, like the Charizard numbered magazines. The amount of and prices a lot of these things are selling for are just wild. I mean, it just shows you how strong this hobby is. But it's not just Pokemon too. It's all trading card IPs. Like I said, I was always hopeful of what could be. And a lot of it too was, I was hopeful that other trading card games would start to come in. And I know a lot of people don't believe that, because maybe they think, oh, you just want it to be Pokemon and you don't want anything else. I don't. I want this entire hobby to be successful. Because at the end of the day, I know one thing is true. As an American, fuck kings. King George III, the tyrant that was England, who was oppressing the American colonists, fucking King George III. But one thing I do know, one king that I do like is Pokemon, because Pokemon is king. And Pokemon will continue to be king. And there is no dethroning Pokemon in the future. There will be no revolutionary war that will be able to dethrone Pokemon. And it's fascinating too, because there are other IPs that have recently been super successful. Magic has kind of always been in the background, chugging along, doing its thing. Magic had its, heydays, those golden ages of Magic the Gathering. And then we saw big drops happen in Magic the Gathering recently, especially in the last, let's call it 2 to 3 years. We really saw like a weird pullback happen in the Magic the Gathering market. Rudy from Alpha Investments has really been able to highlight a lot of the turmoil that Magic the Gathering is, but I think a lot of that turmoil was really affected by a time and a period of overproduction. I think Magic was really, really overproducing a lot of their sets and was really killing the secondary market prices for a lot of this stuff. And Rudy talks about it as like, Magic, I forget, I don't even know their names. The freaking lady from Philip Morris and whoever the Magic guy is, and all the Amazon dumps, all the things that Rudy talked about. But a fascinating thing happened in that area too is, even though we saw an oversaturated market of Magic, we're starting to see prices of Magic tick up. We're starting to see that trend change a little bit. And even what seemed like a death sentence for Magic the Gathering of a just too much overprinting, we've seen Magic the Gathering turn around. We saw what happened with Disney Lorcana, the amount of excitement that happened right at release. One Piece, we saw like the amount of excitement that happened when One Piece was released. Yes, One Piece is going through that period of time of reprints. One thing that it's funny too, because I feel in Pokemon, a lot of people are in this way like battle hardened when it comes to Pokemon reprints. And it's where your biases can also show in Pokemon, is because we always just are waiting for the reprint, you know? And the fact of the matter is, reprints sometimes very rarely come. And if they do come, they're sometimes not as big as a lot of people are expecting. But the problem is in Pokemon, we're so battled hardened because it's that old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But the problem is with Pokemon, a lot of people in this hobby, their biases are just, no, I've been fooled once by Pokemon. That was shame on them. I will not be fooled again. So then everybody in their back of the head are always waiting for the reprints to happen for Pokemon. And, a good example for like the scary part of reprints for Pokemon, just when you think about the hype, when you think about 2020 to onward, your last 4 sets of Sun and Moon, Team Up, Unbroken Bonds, Unified Minds, Cosmic Eclipse, weird thing happened. Those sets really didn't get reprinted. Yes, Unbroken Bonds did get a decent reprint. Unbroken Bonds sat for a while, but while is very subjective, because what happened was early 2020, in March of 2020, March-April timeline, the printers shut down and Pokemon stopped printing modern product. So by the time they were able to, and that was because of the pandemic and COVID and everything that happened, they literally shut off the printers because printers were just not an essential business. So none of those sets really got reprints, with the exception of that Unbroken Bonds reprint that happened. But even then, it happened, and then felt like prices dropped, and then it sold out again. And then a weird thing happened. They never went back and reprinted this stuff. And then we saw Sword and Shield, Rebel Clash, Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage. All 4, those first 4 sets, Vivid Voltage. Prices went skyrocketing. Insane. And then a lot of people were trying to back the winning horse, call it, right? And one of the things that I heard a lot of people saying over and over and over again, especially the people that were very, very pro-modern, one of the statements I heard people repeat nonstop was, this modern stuff is going to perform the best because these are the sets that were available when people got back into the hobby. I heard people say that a lot. The moderner, the better. And because they got back during these sets, people will always look back on these sets. And they'll look back on them fondly because this is when they got back into the hobby. And a lot of people always like to point to that Logan Paul timeline. So you got to think, Logan Paul, October 2020. Remember that? A lot of people, maybe you remember, maybe you don't. But there was a hype train that happened with the Logan Paul, and it brought a lot of new people on. But it happened at the exact same time where demand was ramping up crazy. People were coming back in before Logan Paul too. Ton of new people were flooding into Pokemon. That's why all these things were a perfect storm. But when you think of Logan Paul, October 2020, the first set that came out after Logan Paul was Vivid Voltage. And all those people that were saying the same thing, people who come back into the hobby, they're going to like modern because they're always going to flock back to the set that was available when they got back in the hobby. Well, that's Vivid Voltage. And then what happened with Vivid Voltage? Well, Vivid Voltage went crazy. It went all the way up to $260, $280 a booster box. Think about that. That chunk of chew, Vivid Voltage, Hyper Rare Pikachu, went all the way up to $1,000+ in a PSA 10. Way before the Moonbryon. Right now, Moonbryon's selling for $1,600. Everybody's looking at the Moonbryon and saying, what's going to be the next Moonbryon? Well, before the Moonbryon happened, that Pikachu sold for $1,600. There were sales in that $1,600 range before the Moonbryon ever existed. But what happened? Reprints happened. And then, reprints can be the death of some games. Because like I told you, there's that old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But so I would say Vivid Voltage was the first reprint, especially when you look at Darkness Ablaze too. Darkness Ablaze had the same issue that happened. Darkness Ablaze VMAX Charizard right now, you could pick that card up raw for $25. I wouldn't call it a famous video of mine because my channel was very new at the time, but anybody that's been around this channel for long enough, it's one of the cards people talk about is from EX Legend Maker, the Pikachu. It's number 93 out of 92. It was the box topper, so it's the secret rare, but that card at the time was selling in a PSA 9 for $150. A card that was also selling for $150 at the exact same moment was that VMAX Charizard from Darkness Ablaze, and I made a video just focusing on those two cards. And I asked the chat, do you think, and it wasn't even about what was going to do better. It was just about which card do you think was going to be a better store of money? Meaning hedging against this market, the market going up versus the market going down. Do you think if you bought a PSA 9 VMAX Charizard from Darkness Ablaze for $150, because that's what, and I showed it at the same time on the same day, confirmed sales, for that card, or that secret rare Legend Maker Pikachu for $150 in a PSA 9? Which one do you think is going to be a better store of the money? Which one do you think will have the less volatility? And which one do you think overall at the end of the day will be a better investment? There was a lot of people who said that Darkness Ablaze Charizard in a PSA 9 was the better investment at $150. Go on eBay right now and look at current sales of a VMAX Darkness Ablaze Charizard in a PSA 9. They are far away from $150. But that was the sentiment of a lot of people at the time. And then there was a sentiment that happened, which it was fascinating too, because at the time, there was a lot of people that came out of the woodwork, and they were called the modern bears. Remember that? The whole modern versus vintage debate? All that debate was there was a group of... We don't... OBS Studio. Disconnected. Oh, okay. I'm back. So, what happened with a lot of these people who came out of the woodwork, and they said, be very careful. This stuff may not be sustainable. And the reason why a lot of people were saying that was because that old saying, fool me once, shame on me, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. But people had already seen this exact situation happen, exact situation play out before. Whether it was Ultra Prism, or before that, whether it was Roaring Skies, people had already been there before. They've already seen what happens when people get too overly bullish on certain products, and the danger of what a reprint could bring. One of the things a lot of people talk about as now being a great investment is evolutions. There was a period of time where evolutions at release was very, very sought after, very, very in demand. Evolutions came out in 2016. Make no mistake about it. One of the big driving factors, one of the mini booms that we got to see happen real time in Pokemon was the Pokemon Go boom. Not Pokemon Go, the trading card. Pokemon Go, the actual mobile app. That came out in 2016. And Evolutions came out right on the tails of that with the 20th anniversary. And whether you're going to call Evolutions a 20th anniversary set, which in the Japanese with the CP6, it was definitely a more anniversary set. It never really got that mystique or that name as a 20th anniversary for Pokemon, and I think a lot of people probably lean more towards Generations as being that 20th anniversary set. But really, make no mistake about it, Evolutions at the end of the day was a 20th anniversary set, and at release there was a ton of demand for that. Prices were really high, but Evolutions just got printed, and then demand was there, ate it up, until eventually, we always talk about this, anybody who really talks about Pokemon, they give this warning. Pokemon could print enough of any set to kill prices, and that's what Pokemon did with Evolutions. Given enough time, they were able to quell the price of that for a half a decade, 4 years, from 2016 to 2020, 4-year timeline. They were really able to, print that set into the ground. And I just told you, that set at release was a very expensive set. It was in high demand. I think that's a problem too, is people think Evolutions and they think two things. They think of a set that was very cheap and now is worth a lot of money. But they never think about that first part that I just mentioned. That set at release, it was not a cheap set. It was an expensive set in demand. And because of that demand, Pokemon just printed it. And, going back to that Darkness Ablaze and Vivid Voltage conversation, that stuff got reprinted. And I always talk about it. Those people who at the time were saying, be very careful of modern Pokemon, were all right. That's the thing I think a lot of people forget. I think they always look at what modern Pokemon did on that second half of, Sword and Shield, and they always think at the end of the day, modern ended up being the big winner. But at the time, when you put yourself in the moment when the debates were happening, the people that were anti-modern all ended up being correct, because those were the sets, and you got to put yourself in the moment. A weird thing happened too, is people were only talking about the most modern set, where I was making videos talking about Cosmic Eclipse. And one of the things that I got a lot of pushback for is I was talking about Cosmic Eclipse only a year after Cosmic Eclipse was released, saying how I thought it was a good set and I thought people should be picking up Cosmic Eclipse. And I got a lot of pushback from people, who were saying Cosmic Eclipse is just going to get reprinted. And I guess you can say maybe Cosmic Eclipse did get reprinted, but the booster boxes never got reprinted. And how good of a set is, and how good, supply went and demand went overall this time. But it's just funny how, thoughts just constantly change in this hobby, until eventually you got to pull yourself back too and look at all the sets as a whole. And then we got to pull ourselves out of the printing shortages that were happening. And then we got to see Pokemon really ramp up their printers. And then Pokemon's kind of stopped going back and reprinting stuff for what seemed like a pretty decent amount of time. Again, a couple months, until we saw huge dumps happen all at the same time, where we saw Chill and Rain, Fusion Strike, Evolving Skies, and what was the fourth? Battle Styles. All those sets got released, dropped all at once. Battle Styles went to 80, Chill and Rain went to 80, Fusion Strike went to 80, Evolving Skies went to 95, and it was a huge dump on the market. And then it was funny too, because all the people that were in Pokemon and were super excited about it, it was amazing that all the people that wanted to buy at the high prices instantly didn't want to touch this stuff. And it took a decent amount of time, especially sets like Fusion Strike and Chill and Rain. Evolving Skies was very quick to recover. Evolving Skies very quickly recovered from that $95 price point, and started going up to the 120. It's funny, I could go back and I could look. Let me make sure I put my phone on airplane mode. So it's funny, I could go back to that timeline, and I have some photos in my phone where I took screenshots And I remember taking the screenshot at the time. And one of the things that I said during a video was, I hope one day I could pull up these screenshots of Evolving Skies booster boxes, because I bet you we're going to look back on these prices and wish that we can go back and get them. So, let me see if we can see it. So this is a screenshot that I took. And I took them all because I thought it was going to be important. So, this is November 27th. I took 3 screenshots. I took screenshots of Battle Styles at $82.99. So this must have been after the fact. Oh, let's see. I don't know if you can see. All right. Chill and Rain booster boxes at $91.75, $89.99. And then this was one of the things that I was like, I missed the $95, but I'm going to take a screenshot of $99 Evolving Skies booster boxes for $796, or sorry, $100 with 796 sold. The next lowest seller was probably like whatever, 120, 124. I want to say that this $99 one was probably Pete Football Pete. But it was funny, I went and I took screenshots of all 3 of those on the same day, because I'm like, this is going to be one of those things that in the future I'm going to be able to go back and say I was right about. Because when that happened, that was when I thought was one of the best buying opportunities we ever saw for Pokemon. And I made my videos as I walked through the valley of the $795 booster boxes. Unfortunately, I didn't make those screenshots the same day. I wish I did. I wish I got to pick up the lowest, but that was when those prices started to tick up. I instantly recognized what was happening in the market, how quickly the market has turned, because Evolving Skies went from 95 and now it was that low was 99, and Battle Styles went from 79 to 82.99, and Chill and Rain went from $79.99 to $89.99. It was quick. I watched these all go up $10, and I was like, something is happening here, and I recognized it right away. I recognized that the market was able to do something that a lot of people didn't think the market could do. They didn't think it could recover as quickly as it did. There was a lot of doom and gloom. I was the opposite. I was one of the people that was like, now's the time to buy. Now is the best possible opportunity. Hindsight being 2020, I was right about all that stuff in November 2021, when you could have picked up $90 or $99.99 Evolving Skies booster boxes. That's sub $100. I just told you that was a seller that sold 796 of those for $100. There was a time, it was a period, and it was fascinating because I feel like you could just I didn't feel like it. I knew you could actually put your finger on it, and you can time it at the most perfect moments. A lot of things happen in this hobby too, which it's funny how timeable this hobby is. Certain aspects of this hobby truly are timeable. You can really like recognize when you're living in a moment, and I think that goes back to the title of you think you know Pokemon investing, and I think it's you just feel it. You know when things are happening. You know when the buying opportunities are there. You know when things are going to change. Now, are you going to be able to feel every one of those? Are you going to be able to time every single one of those moments? No, probably not. This is just the hobby is just too large. It's too massive. But you can time a couple of them, and the more engaged you are in this hobby, it's easier and easier to time those moments. But all right, guys. Anyways, that was my rant for today. It is the 4th of July. Celebrating my freedom, celebrating my ability to rant. Gym leader, there's going to be something I want to tell you guys at the end too, but I'm going to hold off on it. Gym Leader Peppy said, hey, Pokemage, McNick, good to see ya. First question I see is Pokemage87 said, PK, are you grading your PSA One Piece promos or sell in immediately? That's a good question. When it comes to the One Piece promos, I'm going to do the first thing is I haven't actually received. No. This is a old one. This is the older one, right? This is my most recent PSA magazine, so I don't think I have the most current one yet. But I'm going to do a simple thing is I'm just going to look at the quality of the card. If the card is worth grading, yeah, I'll probably consider, not express grading it, but sending away the PSA, especially if I think it's a high 10 contender, and then just see what I could do with the first to market play with that PSA magazine promo. But unfortunately, if I look at it and it's pretty beat up and it's not really worth grading, then I'll probably not even, sell it quickly on the market. I might just sit on that card and just see how the market just plays out for One Piece in general and how the market plays out for that card, because at that point I just know the condition of it. I know the quality of it. I don't want to try to do the early of the market and just get burned doing it that way. It's the same way as the cereal box. Can I talk about the cereal box real quick? Can we talk about this real quick? Can we? Please tell me that you guys watch this channel. Please tell me. Please tell me you remember when I talked about this cereal box. It was a Reese's Puffs. I never talk about stuff that's not Pokemon. This was one of the very, very few times in the middle of my life I pulled up this website. It was the Reese'sPuffs.com website. And I was like, this is a $40 box of cereal. Which sounds ridiculous. I know. $40 for a box of cereal. Sounds stupid. But I had a feeling. I was like, I think you guys should go and buy one. I just have a weird feeling that this box is readily available. It's a cereal box. Selling for $40. And I think it's going to be expensive. I don't know why. I just have this feeling. And I made a video. A lot of people paused that video. Literally clicked, paused my video. Went to the Reese's Puff store because I had put a link in that video. Wasn't an affiliate link. I don't have a Reese's Puff affiliate link. And a lot of people paused the video, clicked on that link, went, picked up that box of cereal. And now, when you go look on eBay and you look at the most recent sales of a Dragon Ball Reese's Puff cereal box, it is getting preposterous how much money these things are selling for. And they're getting more and more expensive because you would think that, okay, the first to market Reese's Puff, I can't believe we're talking about Reese's Puff cereals like it was a play, but it was. The first to market ones actually didn't sell for the premium as they are now. We're starting to see prices tick up because we're starting to see supply dry up from the market, which is we are in La La Land, and just not just Pokemon, just collectibles in general. I'm talking about the supply of a $40 box of cereal is starting to dry up on the market, and all the low price boxes are drying up. I know. If anybody out there thinks I do not understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, I promise you I do. But the supply of expensive cereal boxes is drying up, and prices are starting to uptick. I know. We're in it. We're deep. We are deep in what I don't know what we're in. We're deep in something. Quicksand. We're deep in it. This hobby, we're deep. But supplies start to dry up. Now, the PSA magazine, I don't know how many people are, even have the membership for the PSA magazine, but I would not be surprised with how many One Piece fans exist out there who probably don't even know that One Piece promo will eventually exist and all you got to be is a Collectors Club member for PSA. The amount of people out there that exist, like I mentioned, that do not know that card exists, is probably preposterous. And the amount of One Piece fans that as soon as that card is released, they're going to then want it. It happens in Pokemon. Perfect example of a card that happened for in Pokemon. Special Delivery Pikachu. Perfect example. Special Delivery Pikachu. Earlier in today's video, I told you October 2020 is when Logan Paul did his box break. Everybody was re-entering the hobby. Everybody was new. I Told You Vivid Voltage came out in November 2020. It was one of the hottest sets. People was, couldn't find it on shelves, couldn't find it in stores. It was in huge demand. It was wild. November 2020, Vivid Voltage. Same exact time Vivid Voltage was released. You could go on Pokemon Center and you can spend $20 on Pokemon Center and you can get that special delivery Pikachu. The problem is in November 2020, PokemonCenter.com just didn't have trading cards. Every single trading card product was sold out. So in order to get that special delivery Pikachu, one of two things had to happen. One, you had to get really lucky that Pokemon Center had a restock of some trading card product and you're able to pick up $20 worth it to get that promo. Or you bought a t-shirt or posters or any other product that Pokemon Center had available at the time and only had to spend $20. And you got that special delivery Pikachu. And that special delivery Pikachu promotion went on for a week. 7 days. We're coming off the time of Van Gogh Pikachu drops, and as soon as Pokemon Center releases a promo, the site crashes and everybody's just buying up everything to get as many promos as they possibly can before the 1 hour period of that promo drop happening. That special delivery Pikachu, again, 7-day timeline. All you had to do was spend $20. And then, as soon as people started getting that promo in hand, like instantly, the prices for that special delivery Pikachu on the secondary market were selling for wild prices. Wild prices. Special delivery Pikachu was really when we were in the heat of the boom that happened in Pokemon. That was a poster boy of, because at that period, that week timeline, which special delivery Pikachu was available, by the time people got them in the mail, that timeline was up. Special delivery Pikachus never got a restock. Prices went up crazy. It's the same way as when we look at this One Piece promo. The same way as people didn't even know special delivery Pikachus existed on Pokemon Center is the same way that I look at something like that One Piece promo. People are just not going to know it exists. So, as time goes on, it'll be funny how I think that will be one of those promos that you might actually see right at release. Prices are really high, and then more and more people get them in the mail. Prices start to really go down until eventually you're going to need all that buying pressure to eat up all these cheap promos, all those people that are just don't give a fuck about One Piece and they're just, I don't care about this promo, I'm just going to throw it on the market, and then it's going to take a minute. People are going to eat all those up until eventually all the cheaper ones that call it that floor price for those One Piece promos, that floor price is going to take a little bit. It's going to eat them all up until eventually less and less sellers are willing to sell them for cheap until eventually we see a Reese's Puff situation happen. I know. We're talking about the cereal again, but we'll see this situation. What is happening with this will happen with a promo like that. How long does it take? I don't know. But it's wild. This is the hobby we live in. This is the life we live in. We are deep, ladies, gentlemen, children of all ages. Let's see. Shug Nasty said, feeling like I don't know enough on a topic of more than someone else is a factor that limits me the most for making content. Don't let that limit you. The thing is just understand your faults. Like, understand what you do and do not know. And one of the things I talk about, Shug Nasty, too, on this hobby is, one of the things that I know for a fact is I do not know everything. But one of the things that you will find in this hobby as time progresses, as you get deeper in the hobby, while you might not know the exact answer to that question, you will start to know who does know the answer. And the second you start to realize who knows those answers to those questions, and then you start to reach out to people, and then you find out that even if you don't have the answer, you can always find the answer. And that is just as important sometimes as actually knowing that information yourself. It's the connections in this hobby. It's growing in this hobby. That just, reaching out to people, growing connections, it doesn't get talked about enough. I know I try to talk about it, other people try to talk about it, but it needs to be talked about so much more, because it really is so important for this hobby. Let's say we got Professor Oak. Professor Oak, this is not your day, Professor Oak. No, you poor British guys today. Let's see. Number one mod in the game, Drew. Good to see you. Son of a Merc said, PK, tell us your plays. What is my plays right now? I got some plays. Let's see. Plays. I don't know. Oh, what do I got plays going on? I don't think I've really been doing any big plays lately. There's a lot of things I want to do. This is not a play, but hold on. This is not a play, but this is something that I recently picked up. Do you know what these are? Shout out to Rock Pokemon. Rock Pokemon, if you're out there. Little Harry Potter Quidditch cups, booster boxes. Well, 3 of those. Let's see what's going on with those. But plays. I don't have any really plays that I've been doing. Just trying to fill in some holes in my collections right now. A lot of stuff is super cheap. A lot of stuff is super interesting timeline too. Twilight Masquerade is fascinating. You guys have been following my channel. Do you remember when I talked about picking up one case of Twilight Masquerade? Do you remember that? You gotta be deep into this channel to watch really long lives. But I wonder if anybody caught that. Do you guys remember me mentioning Twilight Masquerade on one of my lives and saying that I picked up a case and I said, I know this is a super, super modern product, but it's selling for really, really cheap right now. I'm hearing rumblings about Twilight Masquerade that maybe it might be underprinted. Now, reprints, like I said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But if Twilight Masquerade, I said at the time, I was like, there might be something to this set. From what I'm hearing, it seems like there might not be as much of it. Prices at the time, super, super cheap. And then that Greninja card in it, also pretty hyped card. It's pretty funny to watch what's happening with Twilight Masquerade. And then, if you guys remember too, I also made a video showing the prices on Hills Wholesale Gaming. I went on their current website and I literally pointed to cases of 2 sets, Paldea Evolved and Twilight Masquerade, and I said, because somebody asked in the chat, they were like, PK, is there anything on this page that you think in 5 years from now we'll be looking back on and saying, I really wish I bought that? And that was the thing I said. And now we're watching what's happening with Twilight Masquerade. It's just fascinating that maybe it's either lucky or just knowing or getting the right feeling. But I only own one case of Twilight Masquerade, which is a super modern set, which I probably shouldn't have because that could be like stagnant money, but I just had a weird feeling. And I'm very happy that I mentioned that during the live. Goro said Magic is having a huge resurgence too. It is. That's why it's so fascinating to watch Magic. Which I know I started talking about it and then I went off on tangent talking about other stuff, but Disney Lorcana is still pretty hot right now for something that keeps getting reprinted. And Ravensburg did this weird thing before Disney Lorcana came out that they said, we're going to reprint this stuff forever. We're going to reprint the shit out of this. But the amount of demand that's happening for Disney Lorcana is really able to keep that market pretty strong. I know we've seen Rudy recently made a video. I think this is the second time today's video I mentioned Rudy, but Rudy made a video talking about Amazon dumps for like $98 a booster box. But, for what these other sets are selling for, a lot of them are selling for still like that 120 to greater. And it's like, minus that one product that got an Amazon dump, it's pretty fascinating to watch like the strength of some of this stuff. And then, again, going back to One Piece, seeing, like, the reprints that are happening there, but there's still a lot of demand, still a lot of prices. Looking at even, like, really, really niche stuff, like Sorcery TCG. Looking at what the Sorcery beta boxes are doing, what alpha boxes are still doing. And that, you gotta be in the weeds a little bit to really be looking at stuff like Sorcery. And even Flesh and Blood is just still off in the distance, just chugging along. Flesh and Blood's still doing its thing. Now, you got the MetaZoos of the world where MetaZoo crash and burn, but I don't think MetaZoo was ever a question of if. It was just always a question of when the crash and burn would happen. But even watching, seeing a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, seeing some of this Dragon Ball stuff in the background, like these, like, more fan favorite IPs, some of these other, like, random Kickstarters too. I'm watching some of that stuff just from afar, not actively engaged in any of these markets, really. I mean, Sorcery, Alpha, TCG, I bought a sealed case for their Kickstarter and sold that for great profit, which was great. But most of these sets, I'm just kind of watching them in the distance because I think it's good to have your finger at least on the pulse of the overall trading card market. Now, when you say finger on the pulse, that doesn't mean like everything that's going on. All having your finger on the pulse really means at the end of the day is there a heartbeat? Yes, good, heartbeat. No heartbeat, bad. MetaZoo, flatline, dead. No pulse, dead. But for this other stuff, it's good to at least have your finger on the pulse a little bit and just watch what's going on. And what I'm seeing is so much demand. So much. And it's wild. And I say recently, like within the last 6 months or so, I've been trying my best to go around to different local LGSs and just kind of stop in, look. I was really looking for like a lot of singles, but every time I would go into these LGSs, there was always be people playing games. Like always, like the actual TCG, like tournament and stuff, every single time. And that shows that the player base for a lot of these games are strong. The collector base is strong. The investor base for some of these games is pretty strong. And, especially a lot of like the different Weiss cards. Especially, I keep my finger, again, this is a broad statement that probably is like factually incorrect, but I'll phrase it the best way as I can. There's a lot of more niche TCGs that I need to pick up because I got holes in my collection. This is a funny thing too, is I have a lot of dead TCGs, a lot of stupid stuff back there. I think a lot of people think it's way more than it actually is, and it's probably greater than 100 different dead TCGs. That's not really that much. When you look at the entire market of all trading card games that have ever existed, 100 booster boxes of random sets is really not a lot. It doesn't even take up like more than 2 shelves. I'm able to stack everything on top of each other for the most part. There's a couple random ones like in the background, but like there are some holes that I don't have. Like I'll give you an example right there. That's an X-Men. So right below that Pokeball that was signed when we were at Rusty's house. That's an X-Men Series 2 box. Right below that is the Series 4 box. I don't have an X-Men Series 1 box. I want an X-Men Series 1 box, but they're super expensive. And that's where you're having to like figure out, where do you want to put your money? Do I want to spend a couple $100 on an X-Men Series 1 box, or do I want to buy $50, $20 random dead TCGs that no one's ever heard of? It's like, that's what I mean by I have a lot of holes in my collection. But that's why when I said I'll try to phrase it in a way that's not totally a lie, I do keep a little bit of a pulse on that market too, just like the dead TCG market, because like an X-Men Series 1 box, I'm not in the market for it right now today, but I like to watch the market on occasion to see if I could pick up one super cheap. And what's happening is I'm never getting my opportunity. And that is not what I mentioned earlier when I was mentioning Yu-Gi-Oh! And Dragon Ball and Pokemon and Magic. Those are the sets, those are the TCGs people talk about. You gotta be deep down the rabbit hole to be looking for 1990s Marvel or 1991 Marvel Series 1 booster boxes. You gotta be deeper down the rabbit hole, and especially spending hundreds of dollars just to fill a freaking hole in your collection. And I can't even do it. Think about that. How deep down the rabbit hole you gotta be to look for this stuff. Even that market is still strong. When you're that strong, and I can't pick up cheap old stuff, and I look at all this modern stuff, there's so much money going on in trading cards. And like, so again, when I mention more expensive, like older TCGs, even the Series 4 boxes, right? Marvel, this box. Like, even these boxes, right? Series 4. We know the print number of these. It was like 250,000 of these boxes. And they sell every day. And you know they still sell between $80 and $100? $80 and $100! You know how preposterous that is? There's 250,000 of these things were printed by Skybox. Skybox, if there's one thing anybody who's in the dead TCG realm understands, is Skybox printed 1 million booster boxes of everything, as much as they possibly could. And I can't buy some of this stuff because it's too expensive. So if you have that much money that far down the rabbit hole, all this mainstream stuff, it just shows you how strong this market is. It's a continuous market. The amount of money that is in all this stuff is wild. But the best part is not just how much money is in all this stuff, but it's how much money continues to stay in all this stuff. It's preposterous. It's the best time to be alive, in my opinion. My excitement for trading cards in general, just this hobby, has never been higher than it is right now today. Which is wild, because I think a lot of people are thinking that maybe some of these markets are slowing down. And I promise you, if you think that this overall hobby is slowing down, that the market is slowing down, you're just wrong. You're just wrong. We're in the point where I could show a cereal box that is on its way up. PSA magazines that are on its way up. Random dead TCGs that are on their way up. Pokemon on their way up. Magic on their way up. Yu-Gi-Oh on their way up. Yu-Gi-Oh, you think about all the 25th anniversary boxes. 1 million of those things were printed. They were all over the places. Like I said, prices go up. One Piece, prices go up. Magic, biggest timeline of overprinting in the history of Magic, prices are going up. How can you not think that this is the best possible time in the history of the trading card space? You can't. If you don't think it's the best time, I don't know what you're doing, what you're looking at. And and this is the thing too, I always say, if you're losing money now, you will never make money in this hobby. I'm sorry. That might be like the harshest sentence I can say, but if you can't do well today in this market, you will never be able to do good, because this is like the best. We are in the best possible moment. It's wild. Let's see. Shining Marshmallow said, PK, Greninja dropping or nah? No. Not dropping. Maybe if we get a reprint, sure. And there's just a flood. But right now, that Greninja's not dropping. Twilight Masquerade for booster boxes, cases, undervalued. I think Twilight Masquerade is the set you need to speculate on if you're going to gamble. That's what Pokemon is at the end of the day. It's a gamble. But if you were going to gamble on a set, that's the set you gamble on right now, and you just hope that reprints don't come. You just go on. Before I talk too much, let's see if it's even available. Let's see. Oh no, breaking my computer. Oh, I'm just curious, like, what cases are even going for. Let's see. Oh man, I can't write. Just curious what Hills has them at, if they even have it. Oh man, they have so much stuff right now. Let's see. Alright. So right now, on Hills, you could pick up a case of Twilight Masquerade booster boxes, 6 boxes, $594. So let's just call it $600. It's Hills, you're going to have, sorry, trigger warning for a lot of people out there. Hills, you're going to have to pay for shipping. $100 a booster box for Twilight Masquerade. I'd do it. I mean, I shouldn't say I'd do it. I did it. Got a little cheaper than that, but I like it. If you're just gonna gamble against reprints, yeah, I would do it. So when Shiny Marshmallow says Green Ninja dropping or not, minus reprints, I don't think it's dropping. And then this is a weird thing too. Twilight Masquerade, if it does get a reprint, maybe it will be like what happened with Evolving Skies. I just showed you a screenshot earlier today's video. If you'd been watching all the way through, God bless you. I don't know how you do it, but if you've been watching all the way through, I threw up a screenshot of, during November, what was it, 2021, Evolving Skies at $100, which is the exact same price as Twilight Masquerade. If you're going to bet on anything, maybe that's the set you bet on right now. You just keep... This doesn't mean you buy one set and you don't buy anything else. You just keep buying stuff. You never stop. I mean... But I think Twilight Masquerade it's really positioned super well right now to really be a big win for Scarlet and Violet. I think a lot of people are looking at Paldea Evolved. They're looking at the Magikarp. They're really hoping that will be the winner too. Buy them both? You don't like that answer? Buy them both. Let's go. We're back to Hills. Let's see what is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Paldea Evolved. I don't even think they have Paldea Evolved build them. Nope. Do they not have Paldea Evolved booster boxes on Hills right now? I don't even see Paldea Evolved booster boxes right now on Hills. But buy them both. We're getting into the period of time where, listen, I told you, Scarlet and Violet, something's getting reprinted. I don't know when it's getting reprinted. We got a lot of sets of Scarlet and Violet happening right now. A lot of demand for a lot of stuff. Right now, it looks to be maybe 151 is going to be the set that gets a reprint. 151's not even a main expansion. 151 is just, in a way, like an afterthought when you really should be talking about reprints. You should be talking about main expansions as being the set that get reprinted. But like I said, people are afraid. It's that, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Everybody's worried about just being shamed. Some of this shit's not going to get reprinted. Temple Forces is a good set. Temple Forces is playable. Maybe Temple Forces is the one that gets reprinted. Is there a lot of stuff that is playable in Twilight Masquerade? And if the answer is no, that Twilight Masquerade is not that playable, then you got to keep in mind, Pokemon, they're creating a Pokemon trading card game. While they are very, very understanding of what the secondary market is, that's what I believe. I believe that Pokemon does know what the secondary market is doing, and they print a lot of stuff to try their best to help that secondary market. But I think that first part that I said, that Pokemon is a trading card game, I think they are also heavily worried more about the playability of the game, and they are worried more about the meta. We see it happen, especially with promos. Anytime you have an actual playable card, Pokemon will print that playable card with different promos to put it into different people's sets, to put it out there for the players. But for the non-really playable expansions, Pokemon doesn't go back and reprint them. Evolving Skies is a great example of that. Evolving Skies, secondary market prices, crazy. Playability of Evolving Skies, shit. Like, there was not a lot of playable cards out of Evolving Skies. At release or after the fact, there was very, very few cards that people were playing out of Evolving Skies. There was a lot of decks people tried. I know, like, the Jolteon got a little play. The Flareon, shout out to Rattle Pokemon, the Flareon got a little bit of play. But people really had to push to try to get these cards to be more playable than maybe that they actually were. And then, as more sets came out, the playability of Evolving Skies really, really fell off a cliff pretty quick after, like, the later sets. You know, there was a lot of playable cards came out after that. Fusion Strike really hurt. Not Fusion Strike. Evolving Skies. So, yeah, Fusion Strike, Battle Styles, Astral. A lot of the... why can't I think? The Zoroark decks. Zoroark is out of... Well, oh my god, what is wrong with me? Lost Origin. Oh my... I can't think. Lost Origin, super playable. But anyways, all those sets ended up having super playable cards in it. And Evolving Skies was just not playable. And that could be one of the reasons Pokemon didn't go back and reprint it. So you got to start to look at the Scarlet and Violet stuff and say, well, what Scarlet and Violet sets have the most playable cards in it? Because if Pokemon is going to go and reprint for the name of the game, Pokemon Trading Card Game, probably more likely they're going to go back and reprint these trading card sets. I don't know why I could not think of Lost Origin. This is too much America, too much freedom. That's a problem. Too much freedom, clogging my brain. But real quick, I did see Rattle Pokemon in the chat earlier. Don't know if Rattle's still there, but Rattle put out some wild videos in the last few days about the PSA vending machine. I don't know if you guys got a chance to catch those videos. I watched both of them. I watched his first one. I watched his second one. The second one, even if you don't watch the first one, the second one for the PSA vending machines is definitely worth a watch. One of the most confusing situations that I have ever come across. Rattle really did a great job of trying to figure out who owns these machines, who are the people behind it. Unfortunately, it does look like it is some nefarious characters in just the trading card space, potential card or known card trimmers, stuff like this, things that are not great looks for PSA. And then what is PSA's involvement in it? Because it does seem like that vending machine did have some pretty clear-cut PSA like logos and very clear PSA branding. And then was this person just a PSA dealer? And then for some of the mystery boxes that came out seemed eerily similar to like what PSA might have been giving out at the Nationals for their mystery boxes. It's just like a weird scenario that I haven't really been able to understand, like, what's the end game? And I think a lot of people would say, well, the end game is just money, right? PSA wants to make more money with these vending machines, and it's just another avenue. But it seems like a stretch. And the reason why I say I think it seems like a stretch is because I don't feel like it's needed. I don't feel like there's a need for PSA to have these vending machines to make more money. They're already making a ton of money. How much money could it be made? I don't know. It's weird. Let's see. Shining Marshmallow Mew said, PK, Special Livery Charizard up or down or stagnant? Call it PK. Special Livery Charizard was a free card. Free. Cost you $0. Anything better than a penny, you did just fine on that. Let's see. Let's see. Pokemon Classic says, PK, never stop buying stuff. Advice to live by. Yes. Live or die. Buy. I like it. Maybe we'll make a t-shirt. It says, live, die, or buy. Or just do them all. Do all three. So PokeChef said Twilight Masquerade is very playable too, you know. So Twilight Masquerade could be the set that gets a reprint. Like, this is the thing you don't know. Some shit's not going to get reprinted though. Pokin' said Paldea Evolve with no reprint goes crazy. It and 151. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We're expecting 151 to get a reprint because super in demand set, super liquid, you know, especially from, you know, people with distribution stuff. There's still money to be made from distribution if you could get 151 for cheap. This is the unfortunate reality for a lot of modern Pokemon is people that have distribution are really, really struggling to turn a profit. while I think Twilight Masquerade is a good deal, I just told you could pick up a case right now on Hills Wholesale Gaming for $600 a case. That's $100 a box. If people are, getting booster boxes from distribution at 92 or 93, they're not making $7. They have their credit card fees that they have to pay, especially if, they're running legit businesses, in order to ship those. There's that shipping cost to it. There's the packing supplies. All said and done, how much money are people making if you're buying it at 92, 93 from distribution and you're selling it for 100 or 105 shipped? It's a dark, dark place right now. Even though I love it as the consumer of this stuff, I think prices for me are great in the most selfish possible way. But understanding for the health of the hobby, there needs to be a little bit more margin on the bone for some of this stuff, and so everybody could be happy. And right now, 151 is one of the very, very few products that still exist that have those decent margins for in rotation, in print sets. Sure, you can go back and say, well, if any of these distributions had, I don't know, Sword and Shield stuff you could pick up at these prices, then there's margins there. But the problem is none of this distribution, at least like your big ones like Southern Hobby and stuff like that, they're not selling Sword and Shield for $92 a booster box. And if they are, it's usually some shitty bundle deal where you have to, sure, you could buy a case of Brilliant Stars or Lost Origin or Silver Tempest, but by the way, you also have to buy all this auxiliary product that whatever profit margins you might have in these booster boxes, we're going to evaporate it in a bunch of product that people don't want. So it's a dark time right now for that aspect of the hobby. One that most people don't deal with because most people don't have distribution. But it is dark. So when you look at, well, what set would be most beneficial for those type of people, it is that 151. Because for 151, you pick up a case of ETBs, you can sell them for MSRP. And that is huge. I mean, that any product you can sell for MSRP, especially like ETBs, specialty sets, there's money to be made at MSRP. The problem is when you can't sell them at MSRP. You got to cut them back 10, 15, 20. We've seen wild things happen, 30%. People are having to cut some of these ETBs for certain sets. That's dark. Let's see. Anyways, oh boy. I thought I was chatting for like 20 minutes. I look over. We're an hour and 12 minutes in. Guys, appreciate you. Appreciate my freedom. Appreciate your guys' freedom. I appreciate your freedom and your ability to make your own decisions in this hobby. I think that is so vitally important to you. I hope you guys all see like a bright future for you. And as always, I'll catch you on the next video. Nope. I think my OBS just disconnected, reconnected, so I don't know what you guys caught. But either way, try to make it the Jersey Collecticon. I'll try to make it at Charlotte. Catch you on the next video. Oh, yes, I sneezed, and fuck you, Professor Oak, you British piece of...